Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another video from Be Smarter Daily. If you are here for the first time, welcome. It is lovely to have you. My name is Amin, and in this video I am going to tell you 12 lies you were told about space. Throughout our lives, we always hear some lies. In some cases, we can recognize a lie from the truth. But most of the time, we mislead due to not having a tangible experience with the subject. Did you know that the sun is not burning like a fire? No, our sun is not a blazing bonfire at the heart of the solar system. It functions as a nuclear reactor. Within stars, hydrogen atoms combine to create helium atoms through nuclear fusion, leading to the release of vast amounts of energy. This energy is then emitted in various directions, ultimately reaching you. Let's maintain our focus on the subject and examine other celestial bodies that appear to be ablaze in our night sky. Meteors may give the impression of being on fire as they streak through our atmosphere, but the reality is a bit different. If you happen to witness a shooting star, what you're actually observing is the illumination caused by intense air pressure ahead of the meteor. As it travels swiftly through our atmosphere, the rapid compression of the air in front of the meteor generates significant heat, leading to a bright glow. Despite the visual impression of being on fire, meteors generally disintegrate in our atmosphere due to this heat, even though they are not technically aflame. Although our atmosphere serves as a crucial protective barrier, certain celestial bodies might be too large for it to neutralize before colliding with Earth. In the scenario of a colossal asteroid approaching, one might think of deploying nuclear weapons, mirroring scenes from movies. However, this approach is not advisable. While detonating a nuclear device could potentially mitigate the threat posed by a planet-sized asteroid, it wouldn't guarantee absolute safety. The explosion would likely fragment the asteroid into numerous smaller pieces, each of which could still present a significant risk to life on Earth. The reality is that the moon is tidally locked to Earth. That means that the moon takes the same amount of time to make one full spin on its axis as it does to revolve once around Earth. That means you only ever get to see sunlight hit one side of it. But every side of the moon gets lit every day. In space, no one can hear you, a tagline famously associated with the movie Alien. However, this can be true only to a certain extent. While the deafening explosions of spaceships, as portrayed in the movies, would remain unheard, there exist regions in space where the presence of sufficient particles could enable the transmission of sound. For instance, the hot gas clouds enveloping certain black holes might create an environment where, if there were enough gas, you could discern a faint whisper resembling the sound emitted by a black hole. Speaking of sound, you might be familiar with the misconception that planets each possess a distinct music for itself. This idea has origin back thousands of years to ancient astronomers, theorizing about the music of the spheres, theorizing that planetary movements could generate a unique form of music. However, this concept didn't quite right. Nevertheless, the magnetic fields of planets do engage with charged particles, producing radio emissions that can be converted into sound waves. Fortunately, scientists have already conducted this conversion. Yet these strange sounds, though derived from planetary phenomena, don't exactly qualify as music in the conventional sense. I trust that discussing the potential threat of asteroids didn't induce excessive fear. If it did, don't worry about shedding tears, because did you realize that crying in space is a bit different? While you can still experience the emotional release of crying, the microgravity environment alters the usual process. In space, if you were to, for instance, hurt your toe on the International Space Station and burst into tears, your teardrops wouldn't stream down your cheeks as they do on Earth. Instead, they would form into a floating watery blob that would float or stick to the front of your face. Alright, let us understand if still we can make a noise. It is a good idea to answer this question of why there is almost no sound in space. The primary explanation is that space is a vacuum, but not entirely. A vacuum is characterized by the absence of matter. No atoms, no molecules, essentially nothing. We know that space is quite empty, but this doesn't mean there is a perfect vacuum in space. Definitely, there will be some atoms even in intergalactic regions. So we may say that having less than one atom for every cubic meter can be translated as a vacuum. But still, it's a lie. Upon hearing the term microgravity, you might have found it surprising. Weren't we consistently informed that space lacks gravity? And if there's no gravity, then objects should have no weight. Otherwise, how could astronauts effortlessly float around the ISS? However, the expression zero gravity can be deceptive. There will always be some force influencing an object. In the scenario of astronauts aboard the ISS, they are not truly weightless. Instead, they exist in a perpetual state of free fall. Their continuous orbit around Earth means they are in a constant descent, but never actually landing. Due to the influence of movies and popular culture, there's a misconception about the consequences of direct exposure to space without a spacesuit. If, during a spacewalk, your suit or helmet were to be compromised, it would undoubtedly be a bad situation. The conditions of space are unforgiving to the human body, and in such a situation, we should react at lightning speed or die. However, it's important to clarify that despite the harsh reality, the exploding scenario in space is not accurate. While you're floating around out there, let's address another misconception. Maybe try blowing air in one direction to see if that'll move you or not. And believe me, it's not just because you are not wearing a helmet on your head. Even if you could exhale air forcefully, it wouldn't be strong enough to make a difference. That's why astronauts always stay attached to handrails or have thrusters on their suits. Alright, to wrap up this list of lies, let's all come back to home planet Earth. We always think that this beautiful blue ball is a perfect sphere. But the truth is another thing, and after all, that's what we've been told our whole life. After this introduction, you can imagine what I'm about to say. Yes, that's another lie. Earth is an oblate spheroid. That means that it is slightly flattened on the north and south poles while it bulges out at the equator. How did it get this way? Well, imagine that when the planet was forming, it was a bit like a ball of clay. As it spins, the top and bottom get a bit squished down, while the middle looks more bloated. Okay, that's enough space myths. Did it make you wonder what other lies you've been told?